Hello again, this is Stephen Dupree of NowEnergetics.com, based on YUEN Method. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to talk about money and abundance. I'm actually surprised that I hadn't done a video on this article because people ask about this all the time. Relationships come up pretty often, and then probably equally something about money and abundance, people with problems with money and abundance. So this is an interesting article that started off more like a session. It kind of a conglomeration of 2 or 3 sessions that I've had that were kind of major ones that brought up some interesting, not always common, but really interesting topics related to money in general and abundance. So I kind of wrote this article. You can kind of see the graphic here where someone's pushing away $100 bill there. I'm not sure I would do that, but okay, fine. But most of the time, like with any other weakness that we look at with YUEN Method, a person will present a money or abundance kind of weakness. And of course, that's in the hexagon of life supports, right? So it's the real basic ones that we always look at for most life issues, let's say, fitness, relationships, money, finance, career purpose, time/aging, and then health is number 6. So money abundance comes up for a lot of people in sessions. And so what we usually find out, like with many other things presented, is it's almost never the primary issue. So it could come up down the road, but it's usually not the primary issue, even if the person is penniless, as I say here, So that's important to know, to look at that immediately in their energy. And let's say if you even profile it, that the money and finances, you could use numerical profiling. I have another article on that. And you may just count up to a number and you find that, let's say 4 will go weak, which means that there are 3 things that are more pressing that are ahead of money and abundance. And it could be that some of those elements are blocking, it may not just that they're more prominent, but they're also blocking. You have to clear these other 3 things first, fit profiles that way. So, we have to use all the tools in the Swiss Army knife to look at energy and get very accurate answers. So it's no different than looking at any other weakness. See where it is in someone else's energy, see what the ranking is, and work at it a step at a time. Peel back the other layers first, and then if money and finances finally comes up, that's when you deal with it, right? So if you don't clear all these other elements, if they're 95% of the issue, you're not going to get very far, right? So this is why these cookie cutter kind of seminars or something, they're going to work for a certain amount of people because whatever is discussed in a seminar is going to hit somebody's button, right? But it's not going to hit 100% of the people's buttons. There's going to be 1 to 5% of the people there that whatever is discussed there, you're actually clearing that particular thing. You're strengthening something for that person, and that is their actual weakness. So that could create a huge shift. So I'm not saying these things don't help, but you have to know, it's better to just know whether something applies or not to the situation, right? And that because everyone's different. And we want to be really clear about that. There, you can have group clearings, things like that, and you can actually profile the group. But most of the time we're looking, we can look at group clearings, but we can also look at, most of the time we're looking at something that's specific to the individual. Could be common across a few people, but things are less common than you would think. So it's very important. And so I just mentioned here, if you have a generalized, finance tips or something like that. So it's not going to work for most people because that's not their button, right? So that's not their weakness. They're not their primary weakness, let's say. So, and when we look at the energy, most of the time you're going to know right away that it's not what the presented story is. That's not what goes weak for them. So you have to almost throw away that story to start with, right? You may reach back for it later on, but you need to throw it away up front. So one of the things about money, people don't look too deeply at money. They look at, things in their pocket. They look at checking accounts. They look at credit cards, things like that. But there's money is an energy, and it's so ingrained in our experience in our lives that, we have to kind of at least have some of these elements in our field, so we have, a way to use our insight to really pinpoint the real problem. So we have to have more in our field related to money to, and this is why I created these lists, because I've worked a lot in different sessions, and these things come up. And so it's important to understand that the dynamic of money is deep enough that it's worth putting these elements in your field, as you do this work. So the way I broke it down here is, there's various ways that you can talk about money, and it's not an exhaustive list here, but this is the list that I put together, things that I've seen. So, how does money in abundance come to us? You could do it, have this come to you many different ways. How do you get money? How do you earn money? And the ways that we can handle money could weaken us. It's very, very interesting. For some people, actually counting money weakens them. So it's kind of silly, but it's what it is. So you can get money in other ways, finding it, selling it, trading it, so on. And the notion of getting paid, there's a lot of issues about the exchange of money in general. And one of the things that we do when we get paid is there's an exchange of money there. So that's another element. And then of course we pay our bills, right? But money can move away from us in other ways too. We could lose money, we can give it away, so on, right? We can pay for things, that sort of thing. So this article mostly was, there's some other information that we just went over, but mostly it's talking about a kind of conglomeration of 2 or 3 of the sessions that I went through. So, and, when you start with a session like this, you have to see where the session is going to go and what you find. And, you have to have a bit of a sense of humor, because the things that you're going to find are not obviously, but most of the time you're not going to, they're not what the person actually brought in as their story. So you're going to go down some roads that the person probably didn't think about. So we take a concrete example here, and someone comes with a complaint, and they just, their complaint is, I worry and struggle with, money and finances. We call it abundance, but, money, finances, abundance. And so we start looking into very simply. So we want to narrow it down to 1 or 2 words, right? So we're going to check the energy of these words. And so the person says that, nothing I've done has helped, right? So they've done all these different things and nothing has helped. So, and which is interesting with this particular person is that it's not so much the money or abundance that was their direct weakness, but finances in general. So we went up a layer in this, and we found that just the notion of finances in general weakens the person's energy. And mostly it's about, much like, some people like doing their checkbook and balancing it to the penny, and some people don't. But, finances in many ways is about keeping track of things. And this person was really weak to keeping track of things, right? So it wasn't so much about finances. It was related to finances. It was a cousin, but it really wasn't exactly finances. So they didn't like keep track of things. And it's because they had experiences in their past where they had to keep track of things. And this notion of finances just triggered them. And so so that's what really, we had to go down that road first. So what we found in their energy is they kind of know they have a weakness there of keeping track of things. It's sort of related to finance, but they get around that and they stay away from the weakness by just having fewer things to keep track of. They try to make it easy on themselves. It's like, well, I'm weak over there, so I guess I'll just have fewer things to keep track of. So I won't have to visit that whole area where I have to keep track of things. So the person doesn't even understand that, or realize that that's what, that's what they've been doing in their life. They don't want too many things to keep track of. So, and some of the times it's not their own energy that creates this narrative in their life, you know. So they may have this situation, and we're going to go through. I already know the story here, so we're going to go through some of the elements. But a lot of times, people will think that this is their way of being, this is their personality, this is how they act, this is how they think, and really they're getting energy from other places about keeping track of things that has nothing to do with them personally, right? So they're acting out based on the energy from another source. And in this case, you know, we ferret that out, checking the energy, is that's really coming from their descendants coming to them, right? So it's not their energy, but it's their descendants asking them to resolve this for them, right? The keeping track of weakness, right? So even though we find the weakness, we go a layer deeper and we realize it's really not coming from that person's own experiences, right? So that's very important. So, and it goes even a layer deeper here with the person themselves. It's not so much the experience, but the consequences of the experience. So they didn't keep track of things well, and they ended up going to prison for it, right? So this descendant has that experience, and they're trying to get that experience resolved. They're not perhaps incarnate right now, so they're passing that energy up to you, basically, or, you know, it can come down from an ancestor. You can kind of think of descendants coming upwards towards you, but it's the same type of thing. It's the fact that they have this kind of trapped experience related to being in prison, right? So, and one of the things that happens too, if you have these types of experiences that aren't getting resolved for this particular descendant that's not incarnate, they can ratchet up the signal. So as you go through life, you know, you're already playing the energy game with them. You know, they're supplying all this energy for all these manifestations in your life, and then if you still don't get it, that you're supposed to resolve this for them, they just keep ratcheting up the signal. You keep avoiding the problem by keeping fewer things to keep track of in your life, and they're saying, no, that's not what it is. You know, I need you to resolve this for me. So they ratchet up the signal and they make your life worse, basically. So they supply more energy for more manifestations that kind of diffuse areas of your life in some cases. So and the important thing to understand too is, if you're not looking at the energy, you may unconsciously do a lot of things in your life from that energy, thinking it's all about you or the way you are, and you're not actually consciously aware that this is coming from somewhere else, right? You're not actually consciously making these limiting choices, which is what I mentioned here. So it's really important to know that something when we go through something like money and finances or abundance in someone's life, and what we find in the story could be something so drastic in their life that you're really reaching very deep to clear something that could change their whole life, right? When they change their energy, when you shift that energy, you're going to change their whole life. So here's the descendant saying, hey, you haven't done enough for me yet, right? So they're complaining. So what do? We clear the keeping track of experiences. So that experience that was related to, I got into trouble for that, I was incarcerated, I was trapped, trapping kind of experience. So we just delete that energy. And then we make sure they got the message that it's been deleted, because if it's gone on for a long time, they might not get the message. So this is just things that come up typically in sessions. So it's not just finance related, but it can come up in sessions. And now, you know, when you finally resolve that, it shouldn't bother you mentally or energetically, and you're neutral. And since you're not getting that energy from the descendant anymore, you should be in a better place. And then you ask, you know, here we are asking the person, what does it seem like to you? And the person might say something like this, which the person actually did say, you know, I can't believe that it's something that's that remote, that I would never even think of that. They may, you know, if you're really lucky, they may be able to tell you a story that they've heard about some descendant from 300 years ago that was told to them by their grandmother or something like that. But very often we just have no idea of some of these stories, right? You have to look at the energy. So it's important to understand that too, when we profile it, you know, where the energy is coming from, you know, especially, you know, all the experiences that you have in this lifetime created by this descendant actually creates things that you need to resolve in this lifetime for yourself as well. So you know, we do the clearing, we clear the descendant perhaps first because it's 95% of the problem, and then you clear the other 5% that may be the fact that this person took that energy from the descendant and they actually manifested these experiences in their life that were negative. So we want to delete those as well, right? So not just, we want to clear the descendant energy from another lifetime, but we also, you know, there's some of that that manifested things in your own life that, you know, you had your own experiences in this incarnation. So, you know, you need other, to do a good job, you want to clear both areas and you want to profile it, you know, you want to do a good job. If you're doing a session or you're working with your own energy, it's always good to profile these things to see if it's 90, 10, 95, 5%, that kind of thing, right? And then, of course, not getting too much off track, we asked the person and they said they felt a shift and something in their head, you know, shifted and they have less anxiety. And, you know, most of this clearing for this person was from outside of them, right? So, and we want to get them neutral. There'll be some neutrality elements that usually run into, not so much in this particular session and what I've written down here, but most of the time you're going to run into some neutrality elements too, as you clear things from a descendant and even the person that you're working with as well, right? And as Dr. Yuen would say, you know, when you relay this story to a lay person that's not used to working with us with this type of, you know, going back through ancestors and perhaps karmic things and so on, could be money, so you could have stolen money from someone or some ancestor stole money. So there's all kinds of, you know, kind of tethers that you can, and stories you can run into with this. But Dr. Yuen would always say, well, we don't know if it's true or not true, but if it comes up, we have to deal with it. In other words, we actually do know it's true or not true, but it's his way of saying we're neutral to the story, right? Either way, this is what comes up in your energy. And it's a way of saying, you know, we're going to be neutral to that story, true or not true, right? That's how neutral we're going to be. But, and then we ask the person if they shifted, and that's really the kind of proof of the truth is whether someone shifts or not, right? On the spot. So we go through all of that, we clear the descendant, and now finances finally comes out. So we check the energy again. You know, we ask the person how they were doing, and now money finances comes up to the top, right? In this case, it was 2 layers down. So, you know, the presented story doesn't show up first very often. So a lot of, you know, practitioners that are newer, even some experienced people, they throw the story away and they burn the story, right? They say, well, that's never going to be the case. Well, no, if you profile it and you knew it was coming up second or fourth, it means that you have to revisit it. So you're throwing the story away for the moment. If it's, sometimes a story is just completely wrong. You know, it's either the opposite of the story that was presented or whatever. But in many cases, the story, you know, if you profile it in its second or third or fourth, you're going to visit it eventually, right? So here in this particular case, we're eventually visiting it, and we're talking about all the different ways that we can acquire money, you know. And one of the, I guess it's a pentagon that we use here. It could be a hexagon as well, because there's a never element to this too. So it's usually a pentagon, but it's a hexagon here. The notion of, you could clear a lot of things with this particular hexagon, and we use it for addictions and so on. But the way you can acquire money. So this is just a particularly good hexagon to use. So we went into, you know, taking money from someone, right? So let's say you're getting paid. So you reach out your hand to get paid. A lot of times folks will have issues with begging experiences that haven't been resolved. So the notion of reaching out, and nowadays everyone's got a credit card and it's done electronically and everything. But in the old days, someone would have to put something in your hand. So you would reach out to be paid and someone would put something in your hand. A lot of folks have these unresolved begging experience. This person didn't, but it was mostly not so much the begging of it, but the accepting of it. So, and it was triggering issues in their ancestors of stealing money. So because their ancestors had stolen money and there was a karmic issue related to, you know, having money, taking money, holding on to money, and this wasn't their experience, but their ancestors' experience, this is another layer, it tainted the notion of getting money. You know, of somebody putting money in your hand, it's like, well, you stole that money, right? So that there was always, having money was always tainted for this person because of their ancestors stealing money. So look at how kind of convoluted this type of issue with money became. You know, first it was about the descendants and the keeping track of things, and it had nothing to do, it peripherally had something to do with money. And then we come up with the second weakness, which is the actual accepting of the money. When someone gives you money somehow, either getting paid or whatever, trading things, whatever. And because that triggered something that was in the ancestors' energy about a karma or karmic experiences, they're getting that energy as well, that it's tainted. And it's, again, it's not their energy, it's coming from outside them, right? So they would say, you know, they never had a lot of money or something like that. But well, of course, because the energy is telling you always that it's tainted. And so it's like you're pushing it away almost, you know? And so that could be a way a person thinks that their whole life is like that, you know, is that, well, I never get any money. I'm always pushing money away. I never attract money. And, you know, you look at the energy and it's the ancestors' karma that's causing this particular situation, right? So, you know, we have to be able to turn on a dime and go down these paths sometimes to clear something very deeply for someone, because this is going to change their whole personality, probably, most likely, you know, because you're actually clearing this energy from the ancestors, karmic effects, and so on. And that's going to completely shift the energy for this person, where if the, you know, the notion of getting money or being paid or none of that is tainted any longer, let's say, and the person is neutral about money in their own energy, and they're not getting this, you know, kind of heavy energy from the karmic effects, suddenly it's more likely that they're going to attract abundance, right? Because they're not pushing it away, and the karmic effects of the ancestors of stealing things aren't pushing it away, right? So it's really important to be aware of these huge things that we can shift in people's energy just by uncovering these stories, right? The real stories. So when I talk about this a bit here, you know, and there's there are two karmic articles that you can, part 1 and part 2, that are part of the videos that I've created for this. But, you know, in between lives, you can't resolve your karma. So when we get this energy, it's very, very often it will direct how we are, how we, you know, the things that get attracted and repelled in our lives, like money. And, you know, we're basically pawns at that point, you know, and this is why this work is so important. When you are resolving these energies, in both of these cases here, the first case descendant and the second case ancestor, we're not actually even resolving our experiences as the major effect, right? We're reaching outside of us to resolve these experiences in order to make our lives better, right? In general. So that's very important. So now we talk about acceptance again. So, and in this case, it was kind of an interesting thing. We went down the road of looking at the energy of acceptance, and there was one other thing that went weak for this person, and it was they would say, you know, that they have trouble accepting things, and the real weakness would just be the opposite of that, as being accepted by others, right? So, or something like the opposite of that. So that was we didn't want anything around accepting being tainted. So it could be related to money and finances. In this case, just being accepted by others, as an example. So we cleared down through that layer. So we don't want to have anything related to accepting money, things, whatever. We wanted it to be totally neutral in this person's energy to accept things. And first time clearing, they say it's the same. And so without telling the person, sometimes you don't want to tell the person what you're clearing, you know, you have to check the energy, but a lot of times it's better to clear the energy first, because you don't want the person saying, well, like, you know, they thought because of what you said, that's what made them better or something, you know. So So one of the things you should do at least once in a session is just clear the person without saying, and you may say that too. You may say, I'm just going to clear a few things here without telling you, and I'll tell you afterwards. And then you see if they feel a shift. And in this case, the person felt the shift, and then we relay the story, and it has to do with something that eventually I put as another element of the Clearing Perception Blocks article, because it was kind of an interesting thing. This person, touched on one of the elements, which is the need to hear it, see it, read it. It wasn't quite that for this person. It was kind of really weird that they would get an answer for this particular issue, which is just very, very strange. But they needed to be able to do it themselves. So they had some background in energy work, I guess, and there was something that triggered them in this particular issue of being accepted by others, that they needed to clear that themselves. So we wanted to get them neutral and clear that energy related to this DIY experience, I guess is the best way to say it. So some people have a block of needing to hear it, see it, read it. In this case, the person had what I call it a do-it-yourself weakness. I want to do everything myself, right? So they're kind of stubborn. So it has a stubbornness kind of energy to it. We can relay the story that we hear in their energy, or that we intuit in their energy. In this case, the accepting of things from others bothers them, right? So, and it was just another accept, reject kind of duality for them, right? So this goes very, very deep for this person with money and finances. And very, very often it has to do with that layer of accepting and rejecting, right? So you need to be, very, very aware of what will sometimes come up in these sessions, And here I say it was a reminder of the taint of accepting things. So we already resolved that, but we definitely want to get the person neutral to accept, not accept, reject, not reject, right? So we want to clear all those 4 elements so that they're neutral to accepting. And the person admitted that, they kind of, in some very specific things, they just like to do things themselves, right? So we get them neutral so that, we can do things for them, and they're not going to be stubborn about it, right? So, and then the next thing that came up in the session was something to do with time. And the person really had a weakness to something related to trading, right? So when you get paid, you're kind of trading your time for, some money or wage. And the person had some weakness to trading, like horse trading, that type of thing, right? And the person relayed a story. They don't like Yankee swaps for that reason. They don't like trading things. So let's get rid of that energy. And the reason why is because he had some ancestors that cheated some folks. And the story I relayed here to the person is, kind of when you cheated someone so bad, it was like buying Manhattan for a bag of beads experience, right? So if you know that historical event, it's a very uneven experience. And so they want that resolved so again, this energy is not really coming from the person, right? They would swear it is. They say, well, I don't like trading. I don't like those kind of Yankee swaps. And it's not even coming from them. It's coming from their ancestors, right? Their ancestors cheated somebody, right? So it's another, I don't know, you could call it a karmic experience. Regardless, it was a negative experience on the receiving end of those folks. So you could call it a mildly karmic experience there. Probably a huge karmic experience, but as an effect, but it was a karmic type of experience. So so again, that manifested in their life as just another block to being paid for something, right? So, and when you have that energy, it's not just stuck inside of you. You project that energy out, so it affects other people around you, and will affect whether they feel that energy and they don't even want to use your services. Let's say you have some kind of business or something like that, or you're in the yellow pages. Someone might go down through the yellow pages and they'll just go past your name because they can unconsciously feel the energy there. So, so it's really, you go pretty deep here into what could affect someone's energy in many different ways. And a lot of this came from outside, and most of it came from outside of them. Things that were related very, very peripherally to finances, when you think about it, when they think of the various elements we went over here. But they can have a huge effect on the person's life. So I kind of try to sum it up here. So we resolve this karmic event for them. So it's really important to you have to peel back the onion sometimes, and to know that, and I say this in sessions a lot, boy, you're lucky. You can blame your ancestors for this one. It's not your problem. You didn't do this to these people. You blame your ancestors. But it comes up more often than you think. It's kind of funny in a way, and yet it isn't, if you don't know that's what's in your energy. So when you clear these things and the ancestors get the message that it's been cleared, it's a huge weight that's lifted off the person's energy, and really of their whole life. And to even tell the person, let's say it's a lay person, that so much of your life was created by this energy. How you are, your whole life perhaps is created, manifesting all these things related to energy that's completely outside of you, mostly outside of you, and even these karmic elements that are outside the person. So so that's a good, this is the session that we had. And if you look at the twists and turns we went through, some sort of descendant weakness, and then some other weaknesses to accepting, and then a karmic issue with the bag of beans kind of trading experience from an ancestor. It can go down many, many paths here in a session to clear someone's energy related to what we would say is money, finances, or abundance, that type of thing. And this could really improve their lives. And you're talking about a session that maybe lasted 30 minutes, to get to the major elements, to the primary weaknesses. And we, what did we clear? 2 or 3 things, maybe 4, but they were very deep for this person. And when you go back through time and into ancestors' energy, you're already into deep. And that's very often where we go. A lot of our own experiences don't add up in percentages of effect. The person's own energetic effects in their own experiences may be less than 10%. Many times it's less than 10%. So we need to be able to look at and energetically test and profile and make sure we're in the right direction, that we're not just working on their current life issues, but most of the time the energy is going to tell us that it's coming from outside of them. Not always, but most of the time, because they could have experiences in the past where they did all these karmic things to someone else, right? They could have direct experience with that, and they're clearing their own energy. That certainly could happen. But very often it's a combination of the two, of ancestors, descendants, your own experiences, that kind of thing. That's why we clear that very generally. That's why we have the life pentagon, ancestors, descendants, spirit attachments, personalities, collective humanity, and so on. So those are areas that we clear to get a very, very complete clearing, let's say, of a particular issue. So that's a pretty long and drawn out session on money and abundance. I hope it touched on enough elements of, what we do in a session, how far we go down the rabbit hole in these cases, and and the notion of, when you put some story aside, make sure we profile it so that that you may need to pick that up, in 10 minutes, because it may come up second or third or fourth. The person's original complaint may eventually come up, and in this case it did. Certainly in the trading experience, accepting weakness, and in the trading experience, that was negative. That was a karmic issue related to payment of something. You know, someone was really cheap and swindled someone, let's say, as an example, you know, the Manhattan for a bag of beans experience. So I hope that's you enjoyed this video. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.